So I talked about the first two steps of our work. We chose optimal indices in these two steps, and then we use them to evaluating the clustering, evaluate the clustering of real resting estate data sets, and finally the result of these functions displayed in tables and on relevant diagrams. And with Sheffield statistical test, we check their accuracy and how they work. About the benchmark data set I used, this base its name is basic benchmark. It's widely used to study clusterings, and all these data sets are suitable for objective SSE function. As you can see, as you can see, these data sets have different characteristics. For example, S data sets
Did you change
can't.
Sorry,
So,
interrupting.
yeah,
Did you change your slide? Which number of a slide are you in?
three.
In your PowerPoint, it's number 2, right?
No, it's three.
But we are seeing the number 2 of your slide.
Now,
Now it's 3. Yeah.
now it's three. Okay. Uh, for example, I talked about benchmark datasets. For example, dataset S contains Gaussian cluster with overlapping variable from 9% to 44%, and a small number of clusters are non-spherical Gaussian, but the others are Gaussian. And I don't have enough time to introduce the others. Um Well, for this clustering, these data sets, I start with the k-means clustering, but for some reasons it worked bad. It's The reasons are k-means work worse if there is overlap, and the more clusters, the worse the algorithm works, and there is a linear dependence between them. Increasing the dimension doesn't affect the k-means performance, but this algorithm does not work well if the data is not balanced. Of course, I also made changes to k-means in this study. I increased the iterations and I tried the distances vary between, for example, city block and correlation, but it didn't give me a convincing answer, especially in S dataset. So I used hierarchical clustering. In hierarchical clustering, single the single linkage performed very poorly because it's not suitable for spherical clusters, and complete linkage is suitable for spherical clusters, but and is less sensitive to the noise and outlier, but it didn't work well for S dataset. And between average linkage and word linkage, the average linkage was more robust and worked better in different conditions. So we chose this algorithm, average linkage in hierarchical clustering. For step 2 of our study, we used Dr. Allen simulated resting state fMRI dataset, and they used it for validate their clustering approach, and they simulated this resting state based on dynamic neural connectivity model in SimTB toolbox. And then they methodically estimated the functional connectivity states from the windowed covariance matrices, and similar to the real data, we used it by k-means clustering with Manhattan distance, and the parameters was 2 seconds TR and 148 points and 3 subjects. For the last step and 3 step of our study, we use the sorry for the continuing step 2, we used this Dr. Allen data set, but we added more and less Gaussian noise and smoothing to this time series. And we used 2K means algorithm high iteration, as I told, with Manhattan distance, and hierarchical clustering using average linkage based on the 4 states of brain activity obtained in the article. We also used it in during our study, and we used indices to evaluate these 4 state dynamic state dynamic brain states. For step 3, um, I can talk about the HCP data, Human Connectome Project data set. Our sample include 100 subjects. We scanned on 3 Tesla scanner, and for each subject, the number of sessions was 4 times, and approximately each of them 50 minutes. And first 2 were 1 day apart, and the next 2 sessions were the same way on the another day. And so that we have 4 images for each person, and we considered them as 40 resting state fMRI images of 400 individuals. The Zhu in one of his paper tracks dynamic whole functional connectivity states by clustering the same data as I used in my study. He found 3 major brain activity states, and so I used the same protocol with some modifications for my research because and we start with the data that has been pre-processed, so that minimum information is lost and the general flaws of the raw data are eliminated. Data were purified by ICFX method, and the same method has been used for the initial segmentation of the brain. We used Glasser, and as a result, the cortex is divided into 360 regions. And for dynamic characterization of can you see?
But yes, you are in slide number 10, right?
10, yeah. For dynamic characterization of all functional connectivities, all these signals must be segmented by T windows, T sliding windows, without overlapping, and uh, this method can be suitable for finding unstable reconstructed patterns, and we sorry, clearly similarity matrix obtained by Pearson correction coefficient between each pair of dynamical functional connectivities. We used it as a conjugate matrix in clustering. The three dimensions of this matrix, we know nodes and time length and 100 objects we had. The window length was 29, and so that we had 41 windows, and we used zero point 0.5 hertz low pass filter to eliminate the high frequencies entered to the low frequency signals. Finally, we use the high repetition, the high iteration k-means clustering, and now we it's time to talk about two attitudes that are used in this study for checking the internal evaluation indices are used after clustering data sets in those three steps I talked about. First attitude, as you can see in this slide, is says that a number of available indices use intra-cluster distance, I mean WGSS, and inter-cluster distances, I mean BGSS, to calculate the correct number of clusters. Some of them also use the ratio of the two. We can say that as the number of clusters increases, the WGSS distance decreases, and which of course is not uniform, and sudden local maxima and minima are observed. And also BGSS distance increase uniformly, and by increasing clusters, and the ratio
You
decreases
have two
with
minutes.
uh, sorry, uh, and about the second attitude. Our second attitude talk about distinctness and compactness of our compactness of our data sets, and the clustering. I mean, the a clustering process must produce compact clusters, and the compactness of a cluster is defined according to its density. Clusters can be compact enough but not well distinguished. An internal clustering index should not only measure the compactness of the object within the cluster, and it also should measure the degree to which clusters differ from each other. The I can say about two, I think, indicator: a standard deviation and a standard deviation and the maximum diameter. About the standard deviation is used to determine the extent to which data change or a scattering cluster. A smaller standard deviation indicates that the data are closer to the mean, indicating that the cluster is not dense. The maximum diameter of a cluster is the second parameter or indicator, which is the maximum scattering parameter, shows data is in any direction in that cluster. The maximum diameter is obtained by finding the maximum Euclidean distance between all pairs of points in a cluster. And as you can see, these I should go through them. A data set, S data set, because I don't have time to talk about them briefly. A bit, sorry. And now about the analysis of artificial data set, as you can see, the
Actually, your time is up. But
Yeah.
you wrap it up.
Okay, sorry. Uh, Let me. Um, as you can see, the relative accuracy of these indices are clear in the table. RT with 900 with 91.4 and Kalinsky with 96.4 are the best indicators. Um, and this is the diagrams, as you can see. And well, about the simulated resting state data set, as you can see, we increase the noise, you can see in the table, to Gaussian noise to zero point 0.4, and we added smoothing with 1, 2, and 3. And in under these conditions, and under these conditions, as you can see, relative accuracy tell us that RL and RT could do best. And they are the diagram. And about the real resting state fMRI data set, it was, as I told, it was a human connectome project, and it's for, sorry,
Actually, your
yeah,
can you wrap it up and make the
yeah,
conclusion?
it's just two slides. For real data, we don't know the noise level, so we can do this by reducing the length of the window, the sliding window, which can be equated to changing the noise from low to high. If our evaluation index behaves the same as it's did for what it did for simulation data for different noises is I mean different window lengths, then we can compare the behavior of this index on both types of the data. To do this, we reduce the window length from 29 to 60 and then 35 and equated it uh, sorry, and we like the simulated data with a coefficient zero point 0.4 and zero point 0.8. Most evaluation uh, sorry according to the results obtained from the implementation of all these four sessions, imaging per 100 people and estimating the number of clusters by evaluation indices, what we observed was that Zibeni and Rayturi, which had acceptable these ones, which had acceptable performance in both previous stages. Here, I mean, three clusters, or in fact, the same state of brain activity, are the best and optimal evaluation, internal evaluation internal evaluation indices. This study has been subject to many limitations. We know that the change in the type of algorithm used that we use due to changes in the type of clustering and the use of different distances or correlations, both in a dynamic or in static discussion, affects the evaluation indices. And also And also the methods the clustering methods for the not the clustering, sorry, the uh, uh, windowing method we used, we can use Ising or directly compound multinomial instead of a sliding window, and some will be as a result can be evaluation indices were introduced to still estimate the can still uh, estimate the optimal number of clusters or not. Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you,
attention.
Ms. Shojaei Azad, for your talk. And if there is any question, please ask it. And the other presenter, please raise her hand or him hand.